In the heart of southern India, carved from a single, colossal piece of granite, a masterpiece sits frozen in time. The Vetuvan Koil Temple is a marvel of engineering, a vision so grand it was meant to last forever. But if you look closer, you'll see it. The base of the temple is rough, uncarved, it's just incomplete. It's as if the chisels fell silent, the artisans walked away, and a project designed to last millennia was abandoned in an instant. And this isn't just one temple story. Across India, sacred superstructures lie unfinished, their silent stones all asking the same question: why would a civilization pour its faith, wealth, and genius into creating homes for the gods, only to walk away before the work was done? The mega-temples of ancient India were so much more than just places of worship. They were cosmic engines, centers of art, commerce, and knowledge, engineered with a precision that still mystifies experts. Just look at the Brihadiswara Temple, a completed structure. Somehow its builders lifted 80-ton granite blocks to staggering heights, a feat that's hard to explain even with modern technology. These builders were not amateurs. They were masters of logistics, astronomy, and architecture, able to align massive structures to the stars with breathtaking accuracy. And that incredible skill is what makes the abandoned project so much more mysterious. Scattered across places like Tamil Nadu, you find these monolithic marvels carved from solid rock, sprawling temple complexes with towers that are just missing. You see cave sanctuaries with pillars that are only half-carved. At Vetuvan Koil, the stunningly detailed tower, which shows off deities like Shiva and Vishnu, stands in stark contrast to the raw, untouched rock at its base. It really is as if the sculptors simply vanished mid-chisel. Then there's Mahabalipuram, where legends of 7 pagodas were written off as a myth for centuries. That is until the 2004 tsunami pulled back the waters of the ocean, revealing the submerged ruins of a much larger temple complex lost to the sea. These were not small projects, they were meant to last for generations, representing huge investments of manpower, resources, and faith. To abandon one was like breaking a promise to the gods themselves. So, what could have been powerful enough to stop such monumental devotion in its tracks? Was it war, a curse from the heavens, or a silent killer that history almost forgot? The most obvious explanation, and the one historians usually look at first, is the brutal reality of war. Ancient India was a patchwork of powerful, competing kingdoms. The Pallavas, the Pandyas, the Cholas, they were all locked in a constant struggle for control, with borders that shifted like sand. A temple was a symbol of a king's power and piety. A massive building project was a statement of stability and wealth, but that stability was often a fantasy. Think about it. A king commissions a temple. Construction begins. But then he's drawn into a war, or his kingdom is invaded. Resources that were meant for the gods are suddenly needed for soldiers. Take one Kakatiya-era temple from the 13th century. It was designed to be as beautiful as any other famous Kakatiya temple, but today, it's a ruin. Historians figure its patron, the king, started building it late in his reign. His successors were too busy fighting off invaders and rebellions to continue the work. The dream of the temple simply died with the dynasty. Invasions from outside forces were also devastating. The north of India, once home to magnificent temple complexes, saw widespread destruction. Historical accounts tell us that waves of invasions starting in the early medieval era brought countless projects to a sudden halt and led to the desecration of existing temples. For centuries, the focus shifted from building new things to just trying to save what was left. But does war really explain everything? While a huge invasion could definitely stop a project, many of these sites show no signs of a battle. The abandonment seems almost peaceful. The tools are gone, the workers have disappeared, but the temple itself isn't destroyed. Besides, wars end. Would a single lost battle be enough to permanently cancel a project that was at the very heart of a kingdom's identity? It seems like while war was a huge disruptive force, it might not be the only killer on our list. When the history books go quiet, that's when the legends start talking. Without a clear, real-world explanation, local folklore often steps in to offer a more mystical reason for why these sacred sites were abandoned. Maybe the stories say the builders angered the gods. Nowhere is this idea more vivid than at Vetuvan Koil. The name itself has a chilling double meaning in the Tamil language. It can mean heaven of sculptors, but it can also mean temple of the slayer. The local legend tells of a bitter rivalry between a master sculptor and his own son. The father was carving the main temple from the top down, while his son worked on another shrine nearby. The son, being faster, started to taunt his father for being so slow. In a blind rage, the father struck and killed his son. Consumed by grief, he walked away from his masterpiece, leaving it unfinished forever. It's a tragic story, but other legends point to direct orders from the gods. At the Ramanathaswamy temple, the main tower stands incomplete. One story says the builders feared that finishing it would somehow reduce the temple's sacred power. In another version, the god Shiva himself commanded them to stop, leaving the tower as an eternal reminder that humans are imperfect, and only the gods are perfect. You see a similar idea with the famous Jagannath idol in Puri, which is considered spiritually perfect in its unfinished form. Then there's the Kakinmath temple, where the lore claims it was being built overnight by ghosts under Lord Shiva's command. The only rule was that no mortal could see them working. But of course, a curious villager peeked before dawn, breaking the deal. The supernatural builders instantly vanished, leaving the temple half-finished for all time. These stories passed down for generations are compelling. They turn these architectural puzzles into morality tales about pride, grief, and the mysterious will of the gods. But are they facts? Or are they just creative ways for people centuries later to make sense of the giant silent structures in their backyard? As we look deeper, a third suspect emerges, one much quieter than the clash of swords or the whisper of a curse, but just as deadly. These are just a few of the thousands of stories that bring the history of India to life. If you find these historical mysteries as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. The most dramatic stories have battles and curses, but history is often shaped by far more subtle forces. What if the builders didn't drop their tools because of an army, but because their wallets were empty? What if the earth itself turned on them? The final theory, and maybe the most complex, is that these grand projects were the victims of a forgotten collapse, brought on by economic ruin and natural disaster. Building a temple on this scale was an incredible economic commitment. It took a stable kingdom with a full treasury, one that could fund a massive workforce for generations, quarry and transport giant stones, and support all the artisans and their families. Any hiccup in that economic engine could kill the project. Evidence from sites like the unfinished Palapuram Cave Temple suggests work might have stopped because a new king had new priorities, or more simply, the kingdom just ran out of money. The ambition of the rulers outgrew the ability of their kingdoms to pay for it. And then there's the raw, unpredictable power of nature. Remember the legend of Mahabalipuram's 7 pagodas? It told of a glorious city with 7 temples, 6 of which were supposedly swallowed by the sea when a jealous god sent a great storm. For centuries, it was just a story. But in 2004, when that devastating tsunami hit the coast, the receding waters revealed something incredible: submerged walls, staircases, and carved stone blocks that had been hidden for centuries. It was real. Underwater archaeologists confirmed that a huge part of an ancient temple town truly was underwater. It wasn't one single event, but probably a series of them, combined with the slow erosion of the shoreline over hundreds of years. The builders weren't just fighting wars with other kingdoms, they were fighting a losing battle against the ocean itself. What everyone thought was a myth was actually a deep historical memory of a real disaster. An entire port city, a center of trade and culture, was slowly being claimed by the sea, taking its grand temples with it. So what really stopped these sacred superstructures from being finished? The truth probably isn't a single simple answer. It's more likely a convergence of all 3 theories, a story where human ambition ran up against its limits. Picture this. A kingdom is weakened by a long, costly war, and its treasury is drained. A new king takes the throne and has different priorities. He's not interested in his father's half-finished temple. Around the same time, a few bad monsoons lead to famine, crippling the economy. And then, a natural disaster, a tsunami or an earthquake, hits the coast, damaging the site and convincing everyone that the project is cursed or the gods are angry. In that perfect storm of political instability, economic collapse, and natural disaster, abandoning the temple isn't really a choice anymore. It's inevitable. The project dies a death of 1,000 cuts. The workers leave, the patrons lose power, and the stories and legends begin to form. In the end, these unfinished giants of stone might tell us more about the civilizations that built them than any completed monument ever could. They aren't symbols of failure. They're breathtakingly honest records of ambition, faith, and just how fragile human endeavors can be. They remind us that even the most powerful kingdoms, with plans to build for eternity, are ultimately at the mercy of war, nature, and the unpredictable currents of history. Their incompletion isn't their tragedy, it's their story, and it's a story that continues to echo from every silent half-carved stone.